Craig, so many people have been asking for updates because so much is going on behind the scenes that you have dug up what's really happening. They don't want us to know what's happening. And there's so many areas that we're going to cover. I mean, Jesus is coming back so soon, but the things that we're going to uncover are so eye-opening that you discovered, and I discovered some stuff too, but my ears are all open. I want to hear everything that you found out.
So the United Nations is working to censor dissenting voices while positioning itself as the primary decision maker during global shocks that are to come. So that I want to emphasize, that's what the World Economic Forum is stating, and that's what the UN is stating. There's global shocks or global crisis just ahead. And so we're going to discuss what we need to know. So the United Nations has been occupying themselves, planning out for our future or your future, a future of censorship, tyranny, global governance, indoctrination of your children, and more. So the UN would like to be empowered to deal not just with peace and security or peace and safety, but to oversee everything from education and the environment to energy and more. So the UN has masked itself with cleaning information ecosystems to move and solidify the globalist chokehold on society. And so that's where we're headed with this Pact for the Future. That was in under 5 minutes. This thing was approved with under 5 minutes.
Now, how many countries approved it, or leaders, or leaders?
There's 193 nations at the UN, and 7 of them disapproved. And I will get to that later in the interview, which countries they are, because that's very important as well.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize, I mean, people could say, oh, well, every year the UN has this kind of meeting. I have to say, no, there's some very alarming things that we're going to be bringing out, but keep on going.
I believe it was September 21st that they signed the Pact for the Future. And the president of the General Assembly noted that the pact would lay the foundations for a sustainable, just, and peaceful global order for all peoples and all nations. So that's very important. And so now it's our common responsibility to walk through it, so he says. So and this walkthrough, it begins now, but it is set for 2025. So
Yeah, and you're going to be
important.
and you're going to be uncovering a lot of what their goal is in 2025. And you know what? I want to just say something, and people can comment. Have you heard of the Daigle report?
No.
Yeah, well,
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't read it. So.
Right, and I only just heard of it lately, and I'm going to just show a diagram of it and a snapshot of it as I'm talking here. And I just want people to comment. I really am curious, what is this? Because it's when you talk about 2025, it's saying, and it names all these different nations, and it names the population, and then it says, then it talks about what the population was or is, and then it shows 2025, and it shows the United States population being 1/3 of what it is now. So it just really makes me wonder, what is this? So please comment if you know more information about it. But Craig, okay, keep on going.
So this agreement by the UN is not only an agreement, but it must take action. And we're going to uncover who the person is behind this that is taking action. There's 7 countries that did not agree to this deal within the first 5 minutes. So these are very important. It's Iran, North Korea, Nicaragua, Sudan, and Syria, and I believe Russia as well. So those were the 7 countries. This is a multilateral system, so it's with many. They're describing this, it's a global system of many, not the many, but many. And it's to steer humanity on a new course to meet existing commitments and long-term challenges. Like the president said, it's for a new peaceful global order.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you know what? When they say peaceful, when has the UN brought peace to any nation? I mean,
Never.
Thank you. Right? So for people to even believe that they could ever possibly do that. But anyway, go on.
So September 21st, we saw a major prophetic step being played out with this pact and digital compact that was an addendum to this deal, ensuring that the world government to come will trample and break to pieces all those who resist it. So we see that in Daniel with the rise of the 4th beast, and it'll trample over all the world. So this 4th beast system, we got the framework for it all set up at the UN in September.
It reminds me of the statue of King Charles. Of course, he was Prince Charles at that time, and he's standing
And
on,
he's trampling over the people of the world.
yeah, right.
Amazing. And so in the area of peace and security, the most progressive and concrete commitment to Security Council reform since the 1960s just occurred at the UN. So with plans to improve the effectiveness of the council in redressing historical underrepresentation of Africa as its priority. So Africa has been a major priority to this Pact for the Future, to bring Africa energy and for global control over Africa. So on this Pact for the Future on sustainable development, climate, and financing for development, the entire pact is designed to turbocharge and implement the sustainable development goals. And there's 17 goals of Agenda 2030. So it's designed to turbocharge this for the next 5 years. This is the most detailed agreement the United Nations has brought to their table, and on the need to reform the international financial architecture so that it better represents and serves developing countries. So, and it includes mobilizing more financing from multi-development banks to help developed countries meet their development needs. It's a matter of reviewing the sovereign debt architecture so that they're going to restructure all the debt, all the global debt. And so basically it's communism, and the rich countries pay for the poor countries.
Yeah, yeah. I was seeing that now they want a global tax.
Yeah,
And
there's a global tax in this, and that's part of this too. So for every person, so everybody's going to be taxed to bring this about.
right, right.
And they want to strengthen the global financial safety net to protect the poorest, of course, in the event of financial and economic shocks. We obviously see this isn't working very well in the United States with the recent flooding in North Carolina and Tennessee. It's fallen apart. So we're seeing kind of a repeat of what happened during Katrina.
Yeah, no, no, it's very, very sad. And I have on my Facebook page where people can donate to really help because the big organizations, I'm sorry,
They're completely failing.
they failed, and I'm sorry, but they're money laundering a lot of the big ones. But I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get. But yeah, but the sad part, and I'm sorry, I'm diverting, Craig, but some they're even turning away help. Yeah, they just need our prayers. But the thing that I'm also seeing is disasters going on all over the world.
Yeah,
I
they're everywhere. So the disasters aren't just here; they're absolutely everywhere. And the Bible speaks to that when we see these events coming, that to look up, our redemption is close. They also want to accelerate the measures to address the challenges of change of climate. So that's what we're just discussing, including through delivering more finance to help countries adapt to climate and invest in renewable energy. So they actually want these storms in order to invest in the renewable wind energy.
which of course, if there isn't any wind that day, no energy.
No energy. You're not driving anywhere. They want a commitment to consider ways to introduce global minimum level of taxation on high net worth individuals. So here we go. The global taxation. On digital cooperation, the Global Digital Compact that was annexed into this thing is the first comprehensive global framework for digital cooperation and AI governance. They want to connect all people, schools, and hospitals to the internet. So you will be connected to the internet, your personal body. We're talking about the certification mark there. Anchor digital cooperation in human rights and international law. Make it the online space safe for all, especially children, through actions by governments, tech companies, and social media. So this is a technocracy, or I think that's how you pronounce it.
Right. So, yep. Yeah. Tenocracy. Yep. There it
Democracy.
is. Yep.
They want to govern artificial intelligence with a roadmap that includes international scientific panel and a global policy dialogue on AI. So this is more bigger government. Make data more open and accessible with agreements on open source data models and standards. And this is the first global commitment to data governance, placing it on the UN agenda and requiring countries to take concrete actions no later than 2030. So we're 5 years away. Daniel 7:7 is the reference. And after that, in my night vision, I looked, and there before me was a fourth beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the other former beasts or former global governments, and it had 10 horns. And the 10 horns may be what's being brought about within the BRICS. So this UN Summit of the Future was to build the framework for a new one world system. It's the architecting of the beast system, total information awareness, total control. I believe it was September 21st was Peace Day. And so that's the day they did this. It's the same time they did this global pact. In just a few weeks, the world will meet together at the Conference of the Parties in Baku. And this is the historic opportunity to advance King Charles' global climate agenda. It says the change of climate impacts our only home, Earth. And every nation must be unwavering in this battle. So they want every nation to implement these goals that the UN did within their own government. Their fundamental message is that our common humanity can transcend political differences and stand together in unity. So we have the Babylon effect, or the Tower of Babel, where they want to unify the whole world. And that's what we're seeing. And amidst conflict spreading and rising, which we see today, the ideal is more critical than ever. It is our unique chance to build divides and find paths towards lasting peace.
Right, and their definition of peace is not our definition of peace, because Craig and I are going to be going into even more things that they're saying and some very alarming things, but it just reminds you of the scripture when they say peace and safety.
So they're saying amidst all these conflicts spreading that these conflicts increase greenhouse gas emissions, and so that is their peace agreement is climate, and so their climate moves into the peace and security sector of what their goals are. So these conflicts pollute the soil, water, and air. We know from scripture the air is going to be polluted. 1/3 of the water is going to be polluted worldwide, and 1/3 of the forest will be burned up. So we know that from Revelation. So King Charles is in COP29 called for a truce in November that the war in Ukraine and Russia be held off, and the wars between Israel and its neighbors also be in a truce in the month of November. And that's very important. So they say we call on everyone to observe the COP truce during the month of COP29. That's the whole month of November. Let the COP truce serve as a symbol of human unity. They use the word solidarity. Let's unite for a safer, 1 Thessalonians 5:3, more prosperous and sustainable future for all. It is only by prioritizing peace, here we go, 1 Thessalonians 5:3 again, and climate action that we can ensure a livable planet for future generations. Joining hands in solidarity with the climate king, King Charles. He's the architect of COP, Conference of the Parties. He's the godfather of COP, so they say. So ahead of this event, King Charles has set up a troika to welcome the COP29 event. So it's COP28 president, COP29 president, and COP30 president, which will be in Brazil next year. And these three are leading at COP29 this year in Baku. So last year we saw this image of three dark images at COP28. Now we have these three presidents that are running COP29 this year. So the three are working together.
Wait, explain. I'm so sorry if I forgot about this.
So last year on the COP28, their symbol was three dark images looking over a wall or whatever at COP28. And so this year we have the three presidents all lined up to strengthen this deal.
Ooh, interesting.
So the main one's the COP29 president, but you have COP28 there as well as COP30. And so King Charles set that up, and I think I'll go through that a little bit later. I'm going to go through what Pope Francis is doing as well. So Pope Francis is the one leading this just ahead of King Charles on a different level. So King Charles has 17 goals. Pope Francis for the church has 7 goals. His 7-year covenant began in 2021. And last year, he strengthened that using the Laudato Deum statement. So he strengthens that for the remainder of the 7 years. So what we can do here is Pope Francis, we have a 7-year covenant laid by Pope Francis in 2021. He strengthens it with under 2 years last year. And then we had a 7-year covenant last year the UAE consensus, and we can expect King Charles to, in some form, strengthen that deal or a deal to come. It could be the 2030 roadmap for UK Israel bilateral agreement. It could be the UAE consensus, but whatever is coming is going to be strengthened for a post 2030 agenda. So they're making that very clear that what's coming, that this pact begins 2031 and goes through 2050.
And do you think he could be strengthening it soon at the end of the year? Or
It could be at the end of the year. We'll have to see how things relate at the beginning and end of COP 29. So from Rosh Hashanah to the first day of COP 29, there's 40 days. And that there's a World Leaders Summit at that time. And then 10 days later, they'll have a declaration of whatever transpires at COP 29. And then from the end of COP 29 to the end of the year, we have 40 days. And so it's a very interesting transition there. And then 7 days before the end of the year, or 6 or 7 days before the end of the year, we have both King Charles and Pope Francis will do a speech on Christmas Day, addressing the world. We know for a fact that Pope Francis will deal with peace, and we know for a fact that King Charles will deliver on sustainable development in some fashion.
yeah, and
Since he's a sustainable king at this point, and the climate king.
right. And but it's interesting that when they give these speeches, that Hanukkah falls so late at the end of the year.
Hanukkah falls on Christmas Day, the evening of Christmas Day. So all this falls around Hanukkah, and Hanukkah is King Charles' favorite Jewish holiday. And last year, the Jews in Britain gave King Charles the menorah as their gift. So, and Hanukkah is, since we're here talking about it, there's 100 ways to say Happy Hanukkah to people, but one of the ways they say Happy Hanukkah to people is wishing you peace and safety. And I found that very, very interesting. And so Hanukkah starts December 25th and runs through January 2nd. And like I said, they'll say, wishing you peace and safety. May your Hanukkah be bright. And in fact, last year in 2023, during Hanukkah, Mayor Adams of New York City called for unity, peace, and safety with religious leaders. So very interesting they're using this phrase during Hanukkah. And to start off Hanukkah 2024, King Charles III and Pope Francis will address the world on that day, which is standard procedure. So this happens every year, but Hanukkah doesn't land on the same timeline. So Pope Francis has created with Laudato Si and Laudato Deum a path of conversion towards a new way to exercise the authority in the church. So I believe that the Roman Catholic Church is Mystery Babylon. You can Google Mystery Roman Catholicism, and they have their doctrine of mysteries. So it's pretty evident that that's Mystery Babylon.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard this, but I've been hearing that Pope Francis is going to declare like a global Sabbath, and that's going to, but that part of the global, and some people could say, oh, a day of rest, isn't that nice? No, it means turning your air conditioning off. It means limiting your travel. It means everything that the global Sabbath is for the climate. But so people
according to the documentation by Laudato Si, the global Sabbath would be the year of 2028. So it's the final year of Laudato Si. And it could result to be one day a week too. That's taught by the Seventh-day Adventists, and I don't see documentation for that. But the last year of Laudato Si is a Sabbath year, and I think their phrase is "Praise be to God." So that's their phrase for that year.
Well, it reminds me of the scripture prophecy that he'll change the times and the seasons. We're not saying Pope Francis is the Antichrist, but he could be the false prophet. But it's changing the times and seasons.
Very much. And so Pope Francis has declared the year 2025 the Jubilee year, but he shared his wish to journey through 2024 as a pilgrim of hope, treating the new year 2025 as a time of preparation for the holy year, the Jubilee year in 2025. That's his statement. He expressed his hope that the new year would be an opportunity for the conversion of hearts, that's for the climate, and for the rejection of war, that's for peace, and to embrace peace itself, and for joyful responding to the Lord's call. The Lord to Pope Francis would be the Antichrist, the king.
Yeah.
And so there actually is a document for that in Roman Catholicism. There's a doctrine of two swords. that can best be understood as a particular justification for, I believe, what they call the Galatian doctrine of the sacred authority of the priesthood and royal power. So we saw that in history, this is the Holy Roman Empire, where you have the Pope, the papacy as a head. You also have a king as the head. And there were 7 kings named King Charles, starting with Charlemagne, or King Charles the First. And then King Charles the eighth that we have today is descendant of King Charles V of the German lineage of the Holy Roman Empire. So that's very, very significant. And it's fitted, this doctrine is fitted perfectly for the false prophet and the Antichrist to come. Their doctrine here, what they actually did this until 1806, and then the king was just, the kingship of the Holy Roman Empire was disbanded. But King Charles is direct descendant that can reinstate this once the Pope gives him the crown.
Okay, and I do want to get back to more things that I had uncovered with the Pact for the Future, our common agenda policy briefings, but keep on going.
So Pope Francis declared 2025 as the year of grace, a year of unmerited favor, and has announced their motto for the year 2025 as the Pilgrims of Hope. So they have a new hope for the future in 2025. I think January 1st, 2025 is also what they call the World Day of Peace, and that's the religious sector declaring peace on January 1st. So while they're saying peace and safety, it appears it happens at the end of the year and transitioning to the next. I'm not going to say what day it's going to happen, but we just don't know. And
Right. Let me just
show,
say this, for those who are watching who don't know Jesus, and for you who do know Jesus, please share this video and subscribe. But who don't know Jesus, what Craig is saying is a prophecy that was from 2,000 years ago when they say peace and safety. These are prophecies written 2,000 years ago and even thousands of years before that when he talks about the book of Daniel. And it's all prophesying about what's happening now. And that's what Craig is really discussing. But go on.
Pope Francis said May 9th of this year that the first sign of hope for 2025 should be the desire for peace in our world, and we should show new ways of peace and reconciliation. So that's the setup for this new global government that we're seeing at the UN level. And the UN, the Holy See was present at the UN, and Pietro Polino, Pietro, the head of the Holy See, he did his speech at the UN. And so they have very strong power within the UN. So this Pact for the Future is not only being guided by the papacy, but it's also being guided by this royal king. So the UN member countries adopted 3 landmark agreements at the summit, including the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations. This agreement covered a broad range of topics, and among them was a new agenda for peace, a fair finance for all countries, AI that works for everyone, peaceful use of outer space. And so that's very, very interesting, because when they were talking about this peaceful use of outer space, what they presented was King Charles Astrocarta symbol.
You have to
Right at the UN.
explain that to
So
people
that,
because if they don't know about that, so explain because I saw that.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, basically he has authority over all the universe in outer space. So the Terra Carta symbol, which is also predominant at this meeting, is overall the Earth, and so it's plants and animals and mankind. And the Astrocarta is over the whole universe. So he is the one that is leading the control of everything around us, Earth and space included.
Right. So both those symbols are King Charles symbols.
Yes. And they want safe digital access for everyone and youth leading for the future. What we know from history that when you put the youth in charge, things don't go very well.
Yeah, I want to bring up something about I was looking at some of the UN YouTubes and what they were saying as far as the youth, and they were saying that
One sec.
Hold on. my AI is picking up on your words and wants to respond.
that's a little scary sounding.
You're getting listened in on.
I'm like, what is that weird voice? Okay. Anyway, as far as maybe I need to change the way I'm talking. My voice. Okay. What the UN though was like saying regarding the youth, they said that the youth 35 years old and under that they are that 1 out of 3 of them are thinking about the climate all the time, every single day. And well, of course, because the schools and the universities that they go to, that's what they're pushing for them to think about. So when you're talking about the youth, that's they have like a very powerful group now that's on their side because of the indoctrination in the schools.
Yeah, and this new system they're indoctrinating them with is not a friend of freedom. It's for total control. So this pact for the future is really a pact with the devil. That's what it is. It's total and absolute control by Satan himself, which we know will happen at the midpoint of the tribulation. And we should probably ask ourselves, when has the UN ever impacted our lives in a positive way? And it never has. It's always been in a negative way. And
Very, yeah. But it reminds me also, Craig, of the scripture, an end time scripture too, that a child will turn against their parent, or it's like you could see that people are going to turn each other in for what? For because of climate, because of what they're going to deem is, how we should be living or not.
and that leads to the biometric mark. So everyone within this document is a little Jim, and it's a biometric digital ID for every man, woman, and child that not only marks them as citizens of their individual countries, but as a global citizen. And that's where this is headed. So what I want people to do is search 2025 and see what's coming. And so if you search pandemic 2025, you'll see this image, what's coming in 2025 to 2028. And that there is a epidemic preparedness day on December 27th of this year, preparing for the next epidemic at the UN level. And we can show this screen for that. I have it on their agenda. And if you type in peace and security 2025, you'll see that they're challenging assumptions, thinking ahead, and managing surprise. That's the surprise is the global shocks. So this has been talked about for years. And then if you Google global governance 2025, you'll see this has also been designed for years, that they want global governance by 2025. 2025 is a year of critical juncture. So I thought that was really interesting. Just a quick few Googles and you have all this revealed at our fingertips that we didn't really see coming a year or 2 or 3 ago.
Right, all their plans for 2025.
Yep. So at the UN General Assembly 79, the UN handed the reins to King Charles' Sustainable Markets Initiative to accelerate action and results. And King Charles has said, all we get at the moment is more talking, but what people around the world want is actual and real development and have solutions on the ground. So King Charles is the one who is to give solutions. And so Jennifer Jordan Saifi is, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, emphasized that each event that they have is a testament to our collective commitment to accelerate action and results. So Jennifer Jordan Saifi is the CEO of the Sustainable Markets Initiative, which King Charles, back then Prince Charles of Wales in 2021 began. That's very important to know. So they highlighted his Astra Carta showcase and reception and revealed our fragile space in outer space. Once again, he's emphasizing that King Charles is in charge of the universe to protect it. They want to move financing from 2 billion to 100 billion. I thought that was very interesting. So the Sustainable Markets Initiative was founded by King Charles III in 2020 and has become the world's go-to private sector and the largest private sector organization on transition, and launched in 2021. The Terra Carta serves as the SMI's mandate with a focus on accelerating positive results for nature, people, and planet through real economy action. And we'll add to that space as well because he wants to, that's the Astra Carta. So by endorsing the pact, King Charles, through technocracy, wants to turbocharge the SDGs and the Paris Agreement on climate change to landmark the 2015 agreements of the Paris Agreement because they've seen a halting of progress since 2020. So they got to turbocharge this. And they want to listen to young people, what they have to say, and include them on decision making in national and global levels. And we see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of that in New York City. I don't think you're going to see too much of that in your local little tiny schools, but in your larger schools, in the larger cities, you're going to see a big push for these SDGs.
Okay, wait, now can you just, for those who don't know what SDGs are, can you just say what they are quickly?
They're the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals of the UN. So the Sustainable Development Goals are the number one is no poverty. That's welfare dependence because they want everybody to be on the same playing field. Number two is zero hunger. That's they're going to infiltrate the food systems through GMO foods. We're already there. You go to the grocery store, most of your foods are junk. And number three is good health and well-being. That's going to be implemented, especially with the next epidemic. Number four is quality education. That's mass indoctrination. That's through your schools. So my suggestion is, if you're Christian, get your kids out of the public schools. Gender equality is the fifth goal. Clean water and sanitation is the sixth goal. We know that's not going to happen. If you read Revelation, 1/3 of the world's water will be unusable. That's the fresh water, by the way. And also 1/3 of the ocean ships will also be destroyed. So this whole plan of theirs is going to fall apart. Number seven is affordable and clean energy. That's wind power, solar power. Solar power is not so clean, by the way, because I live by a plant that makes these solar things and these solar panels. And if they get one drop of the chemical on their skin, it'll kill the person almost instantly.
Ooh, so
So
is it harmful for people? Because I've been like wondering
it,
about
it,
them.
the chemicals for the solar panels are extremely harmful and will kill you. I know that for a fact because I live just a couple miles away from a plant and know people that died. Number eight is decent work and economic growth. That's no property rights. So you will own nothing and be happy. Number nine is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. That's basically slave labor. So you're allowed a certain amount of hours. You're going to see more of this in Europe, where you're allowed lower and lower hours and everybody the same pay. Number 10 is reduce inequalities. That's basically communism. 11, sustainable cities and communities. You're going to see a big push for this, especially more in the Europe than the United States. Europe is way ahead, and they have maps of how their progress is going with the sustainable cities.
Yeah,
In fact,
oh, I'm sorry, go on.
King Charles has set up his own sustainable city in the UK, and he has one city that's already there, 100%.
So is that the same as the 15-minute city?
It's the 15-minute cities.
Right, which the different cities that we've been hearing that have gotten with the hurricanes or fires. Um, by the way, those cities are designated to be 15-minute cities.
Yep.
Coincidence, which I don't believe is, but go on.
Number 12 is responsible consumption and production. That's one world currency. And we're headed there very, very fast. In fact, this digital compact heads towards our one world currency in a matter of a few years from now. 13 is climate action. That's energy rationing. So we're going to see that, of course, with wind power and solar power. Life below water is 14. That's to control wildlife. Life on land is to control wildlife on land and control other resources. 16 is peace, justice, and strong institutions. This is the confirming of the covenant. And as well as number 17, partnership for the goals, and that the partnerships will be with many, as that's what multilateralism is. So on November 11th and 12th, they'll have the World Leaders Climate Action Summit. So those are the 2 days to watch. And that'll be all your news basically right there. And then there's negotiations that'll go through the whole assembly until the 22nd, and then they'll make some sort of declaration at the end. The COP29 event is basically for finance. So they're pushing the finance agenda and getting all the finance they need to push this forward. They also have a session on peace. So that I think that's fairly interesting as well. So King Charles has met with the president of COP29 on July 27th, 2024 to discuss their agenda forward. So that's very, very interesting that he's actually the one that's leading the way. And then he approves what the presidency will do for the coming year. So the UN believes they need to protect the needs and interests of the present and future generations through the actions in the pact of the future. So they go on and state, we are at a time of profound global transformation, and we are confronted by rising catastrophic and existential threats. I believe those existential threats to them is God. Many caused by the choices we make. I believe that is sin. Fellow human beings are enduring terrible suffering. If we do not change course immediately, is their intent, we risk tipping into a future of persistent crisis and breakdown. That's the tribulation. It's
Oh,
persistent.
right. Now, I also want to just say the extra, that the threat is also what there's a lot of disasters that are being caused by them. I'm not going to go into all of it, but so a lot of those threats, whether they started wars or whether they manipulated, weather or whatever, a lot of the threats are from them. And when they keep on trying to and I understand and I agree with you as far as like sin, but it's their sin too, and that is causing like a lot of disasters in this world. And they want to blame us and make us always feel guilty, but they never feel guilty for the way they're living. It's just we have to feel guilty for existing. But go on.
They believe that there's a better path to the future. And as Christians, we also believe there's a better future, and it's called the millennium. So it's when Jesus Christ reigns for 1,000 years in peace. And so they believe there's a brighter future for all humanity, striving for a world that is safe and peaceful. And I thought that was very interesting. Here we are, peace and safety. I mean, they're using the exact words now. So last year was peace and security, peace and security. Now it's peace and safety. Just like, oh my goodness, we're almost here. And this will require recommitment to the international cooperation based on respect for international law. So everybody has to, on the global level, embrace these doctrines of the UN. So they go ahead and say we have pledged a new beginning for multilateralism. That's basically unity with many. We also reaffirm that the three pillars of the United Nations, sustainable development, peace and security, and human rights are equally important, interlinked, and mutually reinforcing, leaving no one behind. So I thought that was very interesting too, because Jesus Christ with us, he's not going to leave one person behind. Anybody that belongs to him, he goes out of his way to get that one lost sheep. And so the UN says they will leave no one behind. They're doing the same exact thing. And the change of climate, according to them, is one of the greatest challenges of our time. So this whole thing is on climate. And we see that in Romans 1, where they exchange the truth for a lie. And it has to do with loving the creation more than the creator. They want to reinvigorate global action to ensure the future we want. That's the future we want, is to be with Jesus, but their future is man's in control, or a man's in control, to effectively respond to current and future challenges. To that end, in this pact, we commit to 56 actions, so they say, and in areas of sustainable development, financing for development, international peace and security, science, technology, innovations, digital cooperation, youth and future generations, and transforming global governance. And they say, well, they'll advance this implementation through mandated intergovernmental processes.
The big thing that was very, very alarming to me, Craig, was that now the UN, if there's a shock, like they said, a global shock, whether it's a pandemic or whether it's all of a sudden just a war or whatever they say is like this global disaster going on, that all of a sudden now the UN has the power to have the final rule, the final law to say what we're going to do. That each nation, like the United States, we won't be able to say, okay, well, we're going to do this or that. No, we're going to have to listen to the UN now. I mean, this, to me, this pact, this meeting with the UN in September, it just handed over more power to the UN, which, of course, King Charles is behind that, and we've had other shows explaining that. But okay,
and Pope Francis. So you have the religious sector that's moving this forward, and you have this political royal sector that's moving this thing forward. It's very important to understand you have two swords moving at the same time.